Disclaimer: I am not a game developer, designer, programmer, or creator. I am not a professional by any means. I am just someone who likes horror games and enjoys analyzing the things that I like. Also, potential flashing lights and absolutely spoilers for Subnautica. Alright, before I even start this video, I need to get it out of the way. Is Subnautica a horror game? I've heard some say yes, I've heard some say no. There are arguments for both sides, but for the sake of this video existing, I'm going to say that it is. I'll give my real opinion on this later, in the review. For now, just deal with it. That being said, hello! My name is Taster256, and welcome to the Search for the Perfect Horror Game, a series where I analyze and study different horror games that I find to see what they do right and what they do wrong in terms of horror. In this video, I will be looking at Subnautica and seeing how it does free roam in a horror game. I think this will be interesting, as free roam and sandbox games don't really align with horror games all too well, since it's very easy for players to go out in the wrong area at the wrong time, or to just build houses in safe areas and never explore. However, I feel Subnautica does this very well. Subnautica is an atmospheric, first-person, free-roam sandbox horror game, fully and officially released on January 3rd, 2018 by Unknown Worlds Entertainment. In it, you play as Riley Robinson, a crew member aboard the Aurora, a trans-governmental ship. The game starts off by showing you getting into an escape pod all by yourself, then launching off the ship. All the while, you can hear alarms blaring in the background, warning of an failure imminent. You look up, see the ship, and then suddenly, a panel then falls off the wall, flies around a bit, and then gently touches your face. You wake up a few hours later, with your life pod in emergency mode,
to keep you alive on an alien world.
You then can exit your life pod to see this. Now may be a good time to acknowledge the fact that I have many water-based phobias, including, but not limited to, thalassophobia, bathyphobia, and megalophobia. So this game is quite fun for me. This is where the bulk of the game starts, with the player jumping in the water, gathering local resources to create equipment to gather more resources to get new equipment for the purpose of finding resources more efficiently so they can make better equipment, creating a downward spiral until the next thing you know, you're 600 meters under the surface of the water, running from crab squids in your exosuit, about to starve to death because you forgot to bring any food, realizing that you may lose your hardcore run. Where was I? There are many local attractions, which include, but are not limited to, the ruined wreck of the Aurora, my worst nightmare,
Warning, entering ecological dead zone. Adding report to databank.
and some suspicious-looking clouds that totally aren't important at all. As you explore more of the game, you slowly start to learn the specifics of why the Aurora crashed here, what happened on this planet, and what's going on beneath the surface of this ocean. As you progress further in the game, you will find an island of interest to the north, in the mountains biome. The island is home to a really big gun, and you can even watch it fire upon an unfortunate group of individuals aboard a ship called the Sunbeam. This will also probably be your first interaction with the Architects, an alien race which once inhabited this planet. Upon exploration to the south, you can find a floating island, which you can then find abandoned bases upon. When reading the PDAs located throughout the bases, you can learn about the Degassi crew, a group who previously had an interaction with the Quarantine Enforcement Platform, the official name of that big gun I mentioned before. Aside from that, you will eventually have to explore down, further and further, going deeper under the crater, which is the name of the explorable map. As you explore, you will get occasional encounters in your own head with
What are you?
something. Slowly, you will work your way down through the deep Grand Reef, Blood Kelp Zone, Lost River, and Inactive Lava Zone, and will eventually reach the Lava Lakes, one of the most dangerous areas in the game. You find a way to get all the way down here to cure a bacterium called the Carabacterium, which infects the water and the creatures in it. From there, you can deactivate the big gun I mentioned, build a rocket, and leave the planet, ending the game with the beautiful message of
"Welcome home to all Terra. Permission to land will be granted once you have settled your outstanding balance of 1 trillion credits."
as a final fuck you from the game. Cue credits. And that's Subnautica, a water-based free-roam sandbox horror game. I personally enjoy this game a lot, to the point where recording it for this video is my 8th time playing it through to the end. So I will admit that I am biased in saying that the game is good, but it's good. Subnautica, being a free-roam game with 18 explorable biomes and a lot of unique threats in each biome, manages to get the players to explore these biomes. But how does it do it? Well, it does it with a few things. 1. It doesn't ask the player to explore immediately. It waits for the player to get used to the controls, their environment, and their tools. It does this by disabling the radio until the player fixes it using their repair tool. The repair tool requires resources that the player has to work for, meaning that the player won't be able to use the radio until they have enough of an understanding of the game to create the repair tool. By this time, the player will have some basic resources, typically including tools such as a flashlight, a scanner, an oxygen tank, a knife, and obviously the repair tool. The player will also have a bit of an understanding of how to get food and water and other basic resources to keep themselves alive. 2. When it does ask the player to explore, it does so using the life pods. These life pods are located in different biomes, located further and further out, promising things such as a sea glide, a sea moth, and an explanation of what happened, and maybe even other humans? If the player wants these things, they have to explore, braving the danger for the potential loot. These also prepare the player for the descent they will have to take, as the sunken life pods show up deeper and deeper, further and further out, going from only 17 meters to 250 meters to even 500 meters deep. They also don't appear all at once. Some appear just kind of because you exist, but most only appear once you reach certain points or do certain things. 3. The beacons. The life pods all have their own beacons, which can be seen even through solid rock, always begging the player to go to them. But not all of them have beacons, so if the player wants them, they have to explore, being thorough and patient, in spite of the threats which the player will have to navigate around. One of the hidden life pods is really interesting in my opinion, as all it gives the player in terms of location is near the Aurora, with this helpful image. And by the way, when I first played, I thought this life pod was on the far side of the Aurora. And speaking of, 4. The Aurora. From any point on the surface of the crater, the Aurora is within viewing distance, even when other large things aren't. At first, it will tantalize the player, being loud and large, surrounded by extreme danger on all sides, with no way in and a surrounding circle of radiation. But eventually, it'll do this.
Emergency. A quantum detonation has occurred in the Aurora's drive core. The reactor will reach a supercritical state in T-10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Wow, for my convenience? Thank you so much, game! From this point on, the Aurora presents more danger in the form of a larger radiation zone, but also gives a clear entry for the player at the front. If the player decides to use this entrance, they are most likely to meet a Reaper Leviathan. I won't go into what happens aboard the Aurora, but it is very difficult to traverse if you don't know what to do. That is my warning. Eventually, the player will have explored the Aurora and all the life pods, but if that's all they've done, they won't even be halfway through the game. So how does the game keep the player exploring? In a few ways. 1. Better resources. By the time you explore all the life pods, you will most likely have gotten a taste for some very nice resources, such as magnetite, nickel, blood clots, and sulfuric acid. They're nice, but if you want more of them, then you'll have to take equipment deeper to stay alive. You'll have to prepare for a long haul. 2. The depth modules. All of your vehicles have a predetermined crush depth, some being better than others. To get to certain areas, such as the mysterious Lost River in the Seamoth or the vibrant giant cove tree in the Prawn Suit, the player needs to be able to go deeper. The game will give them blueprints for depth modules, at least one for every vehicle. These not only let them explore different parts of the topology of the surface, from the downsloping of the crag field to the deep pits of the underwater islands, they also insinuate that the player will eventually need to go deeper, underground, as the deepest one can go on the surface is only about 675 meters. That's just over half the Prawn Suit's base crush depth, and 2 depth modules can still be added to it. 3. Life. One thing that this game has is sapient life. The planet has been around for a while. The Aurora isn't the only ship who crashed on it. Throughout the game, the player will find notes, which give generalized hints as to the whereabouts of the structures of this fellow sapient life. Naturally, the structures are deep, like really deep in some cases. Locating these structures requires contact with some very dangerous creatures. This whole game is just a series of risk-reward scenarios, I swear. 4. The visions. As the player runs around doing their thing, they will get visions of sorts, coming from an unknown source. It's clear, however, that this source is intelligent enough to communicate directly with the player. This isn't explained throughout most of the game, not until the very end of the story, in fact. But the strangeness of this can help motivate the player to explore, granting them motivation to keep going deeper, even if only for answers. So yeah, the game uses the promise of answers, resources, new better equipment, and gorgeous new areas to explore to motivate the player to keep exploring out from their starting point until they can decide that it's better at this point to just keep going. After all, they're almost done. This is counteracted by the dangers found throughout the land and creates a sense of tension and conflict with whoever's playing, as they want those things, but they also don't want to die, hopefully. So, to go back to what I said at the beginning, do I think Subnautica is a horror game? Short answer, kinda? Long answer, it's very much an atmospheric game. I mean, just look at this. And sometimes that atmosphere can be quite scary. But ultimately, despite the fact that I find the game to be scary, I would not consider this a horror game. Rather, I would say it's just a free-roam survival game with an intense atmosphere that knows how to play into people's phobias, which is why some people, like me, find it to be so scary, and other people think calling it scary is being overdramatic. Now, that doesn't mean the game can't be scary, trust me. I still find myself being scared of this game, but I don't think this is as much a horror game as it is a game with horror aspects. And by no means would I call this the perfect horror game, but overall, I'd say this can still work as a horror game, and a scary one at that. Now, I do understand that the creators did not originally intend for this to be a horror game, and I respect that, but I do feel like since so many people have had such a feeling of fear about the game, since it's created such a widespread feeling of horror, it's worth talking about. Personally, I'd rate this game an 8 out of 10, though I'm aware that I'm biased. More objectively, I rate it a 3 out of 10, as its horror is extremely subjective. It has unique and interesting gameplay, a decent amount of replayability due to the multiple paths which can be followed to reach the end goal and the massive map to explore, and it's good at motivating the player to explore, but due to its size, I find it can crash easily if you work to push it too hard. It's very laggy, it can be slow at times, and it sucks to have to retrace your steps and go all the way back because you forgot a single silicone rubber and you're in just your prawn suit and you have to spend the next 15 minutes going back all through the northern blood kelp zone all the way to your base just to stab a plant a couple of times, all so you can make a single power cell. And that was Subnautica, and how it promotes exploration in spite of the horrors surrounding the things that you want to explore. I very much enjoy this game, and in fact, in recording the footage for this video, I have 100%ed the game, going to every biome and trying to scan everything, at least all the leviathans. That was fun. If you made it through my insane ramblings, that means you probably enjoyed this video, or you just put it on as background noise. Either way, thank you for watching, stay safe, and I just want to say, this game would be so much more stressful if the sonic drowning music played when you were on low oxygen. I could probably make that a mod if it doesn't already exist.
Likely, but plausible.
Nah, I don't need that blood on my hands.